Oh, ladies and gentlemen, are we live? We are live. Very good. Thought occurred to me on the subject of stories. This was, I'm traveling around. I'm in Prague at the moment. I'm moving around, and I can see as I'm like getting taxis, getting public transport, or whatever it is, you go past people rapidly and you go through little slices of life. Today, there was a completely naked 4-year-old child pissing on a bin as I went past. And he had tipped his whole body backwards so that the stream would go higher. He was in sunlight. He was in this beam, they're like in between buildings, these quite high buildings. He was in a beam of sunlight, just pissing joyfully. He was so happy. It was the most, he was in his power, man. He was like, I'm gonna piss on this fucking bin, and he did. And I'm thinking to myself, I started laughing. I'm in the back of the Uber and I start laughing. The taxi driver hadn't seen it, so he didn't know why I was suddenly laughing. And I don't speak Czech, he doesn't speak English, so I wasn't going to hand gesture that for him. I was like, we'll just leave that one, mate. But you go past people's lives really, really quickly, and the thought occurred to me that like, in order to understand so much stuff and so much variation and so many people. Nowadays we can travel. We've got the technology to travel. We've got the technology, things like Uber. You can book a flight on your phone. You've got an app for your flight. You show up, you show them a barcode, and then you get on your flight. It's great. But there's more movement. There's more stuff going on. And it's not easy to understand all of that data. And I think we're probably more reliant on stories than we used to be because there's more to deal with. We're just cramming information into our stupid little human brains. I don't know. I heard or read somewhere that like we're consuming as much data in 2 hours a day now as we would have done in entire lifetime. In the 17th century. Also, I don't know if it's true, but certainly we're having to deal with a lot more data. So we're more reliant on filters. And stories are filters, make no mistake. Stories, narratives, mythologies are ways of filtering what we see so that we can know where everything goes. Stories tell us where things go. Stories put things in their proper place. So we actually need a lot of stories, and we rely on stories a lot more. I don't think it's possible for us in the modern world to understand what a story meant in the ancient world. I attempted to write a book on Christian mythology and the Pharaoh Akhenaten in like years ago, about 7 years ago, longer now, 9 years ago, and it was one or two books. I wrote a part of a fiction and part of a fact-based book, and they were both totally rejected. But one of my hypotheses that I wanted to present was the lens through which we're trying to understand history and the religion of days go by is completely dirty and completely corrupted because we can't understand it naively. We can only understand it through our we're cognoscanti. We're the ones who know now. We're in a position of history where we know, or at least we tell ourselves that we do. So it's not like people get upset with me on the whole issue of Christianity, and I'm like, I don't have a problem with the core mythology. I don't have a problem with the spirituality and the mysticism. I don't have a problem with the notions of it, but the way it is permutated into dogma is extremely fucking problematic. The cherry picking of stories is insane. We only read or we only discuss in school and in church 10 to 15% of what's in the Bible because 75% of it needs ignoring because a lot of it is really indecipherable. It's clearly code. Look at the book of Revelations. It's code, but we don't have the codex, so we don't know what the hell it's on about. poems, diary entries, witness accounts, all the rest of it. But the big thing was not, so people would say to me, "Oh, so you're saying that there was no historical person called Jesus?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not saying that. I don't find that an interesting question. I find that a really boring question." And I'm like, ugh, who cares? Like, what does it matter? To me, that doesn't matter at all. The much more interesting question is, early Christianity, how was it understood? How was the story felt? How was it understood? What did it mean then versus what it means now after the establishment of the church? What does it mean now? And that we can't see it. Similarly, we're also going through times where we rely more and more on story for our sense of identity, our narratives. What are you like? What are you into? What team do you represent? Are you on the red team or the blue team? Are you on the team on the left or the team on the right? These are stories, they're narratives, because you're neither really. You can't be. You're not all the way right on everything. You're not. You're not all the way left on everything. You won't be. There's just no way. But it's easier to say that you are. It's easier to just go along with it. Just go, yeah, I'm all the way this or I'm all the way that. At the same time, we live in a time when stories are being pulled apart, doubled down on, multiplied, and destroyed all at the same time. Enormously stressful if you think about it. We have our stories, they're propagating like a virus, and they're fighting. They're fighting each other. My narrative fights your narrative fights his narrative fights her narrative, and on it goes. Let's form a group. Oh, the group works for 3 months, and then what happens? It tears itself to shreds. Why? Because the stories don't match up. The mythology doesn't match. They're propagating because of the amount of data we have to deal with. It's very, very stressful. We can't imagine the luxury of times gone by in terms of the need to consume very little data and to be very understimulated. We're all overstimulated, including me. We're all consuming way too much, including me. And it's exhausting because we've not evolved for this yet. We're stressed out, we're agitated. And the effort to tear stories down is doubling and redoubling all the time. I wonder what the world would look like if more and more people got into the idea of actually, even though story promises salvation and promises identity and promises recognition, social hierarchy, being higher up the social hierarchy, and all these things, where they actually go, you know what? This is a scam. This shit isn't going to deliver. I want to feel okay. That's all you want. It doesn't matter what your identity is, where on the spectrum of politics you are, whether you're pro this or anti that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're trying to feel good. Actually, if you tune into your body somatically and into your emotions and notice how you feel, when you move into storylessness, that's the best you're going to feel. That's the lightest you're going to feel, because you're not carrying anything. Story is burden. Identity is burden. Trying to make that fit, trying to make that work is a catch-22. It's an impossible exercise. It's double bind. Can't be done. Can't be done. The story can't work. I think that's why when you get people who get heavily involved in religious dogma or heavily involved in political dogma, they look and sound crankier and crankier over time. They look and sound sicker and sicker over time. They look and sound more and more agitated over time because there's no rest. You're trying to scream at people that the sky is blue. You're trying to scream at people that the grass is green. Why? Why do you need to convince other people of your story? People come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, what should I do if somebody disagrees with me about this?" I do nothing. I don't know anything about it. Who cares? Somebody disagrees with you, as long as they're not trying to rob you or stab you, and that's the source of the disagreement, I don't really care. Somebody disagrees with me, that's cool. Many lives, many perspectives. What's true for me might not be true for them. So there's that. And also, some people, they're not really there to debate and learn with sincerity. They're just pretending. They're actually there to steal your time, steal your attention, wind you up, and they get a buzz from that. It's storylessness where the good stuff happens. I was thinking today about this concept called manifestation, right? You remember the film The Secret? There's the book Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualization. I'm reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich at the moment as part of the 75 Hard thing that I'm on, which focuses on it a lot, like manifestation of reality. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's all good. 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 But it's more and more and more and more and more story. It's more story and more story and more story. And as I was thinking about it, I remembered something that I heard. I was a taxi driver for a while. Back in 2005, maybe 2006, I was a taxi driver in New Ferry and Rock Ferry. The song Rock Ferry by that lady. It was about when she was living in Rock Ferry. And I was, it was long enough ago that there was no apps or anything. Player in my car, and I was listening to Deepak Chopra. I was listening to all kinds of personal development stuff when I was a taxi driver, and I was listening to Synchro Destiny. And Deepak, good old Deepak, eh? Gotta love a bit of Deepak. I'd nicked a phrase from quantum mechanics called non-local. Non-local. So when something is localized, you and I, in our egoic sense of self right now, ego, good, healthy, fine, fantastic. You have your bank account number, you have your political preferences, you have this, you have that, favorite flavored ice cream, your socks, and so on. You're local, you're localized, your sense of self is here. It's rooted in a time and in a place. There is a locality to it. When you are non-local, you're non-localized. By the way, if you're truly local, you have an internalized locus of control, which is good. Externalized locus of control, you keep saying is bad. Yes, but it's actually yin and yang. It's actually yin and yang. There are some things that you just can't control. I want you to have sovereignty. I want you to have agency, but I push you in that direction because you're too far that direction as fawning codependence. But actually, in balance, you have both. You need to have an internalized locus of control, and then you need to have non-localized locus of control, where you just know that you're not in control of things, and you have a realistic sense of that which you don't control, and you accept it. Going into a frame of mind that is non-local, that is non-egoic, is really healthy. The mind is yang. The conscious mind is yang. The unconscious mind is yin. I listened to a podcast by Slavoj Žižek yesterday. He says he's writing, or one of the concepts he's writing about in his next book is the Lacanian concept of the mind, of the unconscious mind, simply being a negative, as in the electrical term negative, as opposed to positive, electrically positive, a negative space. The unconscious is just a negative space. It can only understand that which is not. It thinks in terms of that which is not. To paraphrase his old ancient joke, this is the unconscious space that understands whether you're drinking a coffee without milk or a coffee without cream. That's the unconscious, the unconscious space that he's talking about. So you're yang when you're in mind and you're analyzing and you're strategizing, and that's good. You're yin when you're non-local. You're yin when you're not attached to the story of you and to the story of who you are, the multiple stories of who you are, because everybody has to carry multiple stories now in order to get by. You're yang when you're awake in the sun. You're yin when you're asleep and the moon is up. When do you rest? When do you rest? When you're yin. You can't rest in yang. Yang is activity. Yin is repose. That's when you breathe in. Breathing out, breathing in. Right now, we're all breathing out without breathing in. And that's a problem. So storylessness is the antidote to too much story. Egolessness and being non-localized is the antidote to story. Yes, you are here and you're localized here, but you're more than just this. You're more than just this. We're all more than just this. This is the material world, and in the material world you're localized and you're yang. The spiritual world is yin. What are you? A flesh robot? No. You're a spiritual being having a material experience, clearly. The material world wants to trick us into thinking that this is the reality and this is all there is. But it's a trick. It's not true. You're a spiritual being having a material experience, not the other way around. But this world, the test is to hold that truth in a material world that's very compelling, that's very stimulating, that's very distracting. Distracting from what? Distracting from intent. The true intent, which is to hold the space. Hold the space. Hold the space. I've heard that expression. What the fuck does that mean? How do I hold a space? Only a cup holds a space. A cave holds a space. A bucket holds a space. And the human mind can hold a space, but not when it's yang. Only when it's yin. Empty the cup. Empty the cup. Let go of content. Not always, not forever. As Terence McKenna would have said, you still need to know who you are so that you put the food in your mouth and not somebody else's. So, but we are over yang. We need yin. We need repose. We need to empty the cup. We need to hold the space. When we hold the space for other people, it feels good to them. We've got to hold the space for ourselves. Non-local. Non-localized. Not here now. Not this, but accepting the here and now and holding the space of the here and now without attachment, being detached from it, and observing. The space can observe. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them now. A question should be one sentence long, and then a question mark, which is that squiggly thing with a dot underneath it. This is the pause in which people feel under pressure and all the comments stop and they're like, what should I ask? Manuela B says, in your opinion, is Islam yin or yang? Did you say that because I said that moon is yin? And that's the symbol of Islam? Yeah. Did important things happen at night? And did important things happen in dreams? So, Mariana Menendez says, these are the secrets of the balance. These are the secrets of the balance. You must know the balance. The balance. Does music express the spirit part? Is that why it feels like storylessness? Can do. Some music is very storied, some music is very narrative based, and some music is very storyless. Can you guide other people to storylessness without too much explaining to them? You can do. I mean, some of those videos that I've tried to do just as an experiment where I'm just like, I'm not filming my face, I'm filming like a sunset or a sunrise and I'm talking. I'm guiding people to storylessness, but I'm not there's not that much content there. You know, I'll say a few things, push people in different directions or whatever. But you know, yeah, to a degree, to a degree. The Chariot card in the tarot would be a yang or a yin. Well, the Chariot pushes, there's your capacity to push forward in life. It's your car, it's your motivation, it's your strength to move forward. So it is seemingly very yang, but what you stand in to be in the Chariot is a yin space. So the Chariot moves forward as yang, but you stand in a yin space. That's what the seat or the stand of the Chariot is. It's kind of a cup for a human to stand inside of. So it's both. It's balanced. Place that I'm in right now, it's time for me to go. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I hope that was useful. Cheers.